But you so quickly forget about that. And then Senator Kaine, or I guess I better use the senator from Virginia, starts bringing up the fact that what if you showed up drunk to your job? How many senators have showed up drunk to vote at night? Have any of you guys asked them to step down and resign from their job? And don't tell me you haven't seen it, because I know you have. And then how many senators do you know have got a divorce before cheating on their wives? Did you ask them to step down? No. But it's for show. You guys make sure you make a big show and point out the hypocrisy because the man's made a mistake.
Welcome back to the channel, everybody. Honestly, I had to watch this clip 3 times just to make sure I wasn't hallucinating. The sheer, unadulterated arrogance coming out of Washington right now is mind-blowing. What you are about to see is the DC establishment, specifically guys like Tim Kaine, trying to completely destroy Pete Hegseth. They are sitting up on their high horses, grilling him about his past, acting like they are the supreme moral judges of the universe. Tim Kaine, a guy who has spent his entire life in the political swamp, is trying to lecture a combat veteran about character? But then, Senator Mark Wayne Mullin steps in. And guys, Mullin doesn't just defend Pete Hegseth. He takes a sledgehammer to the absolute hypocrisy of the entire Senate Armed Services Committee. He says the quiet part out loud about what actually goes on in Washington, and it is incredible. We are going to watch the full video right now, and then we're going to break down why the Democrats are so terrified of Hegseth running the Pentagon.
Senator Mullin.
Okay.
That's right.
Caught me totally off guard there. I'd like to submit for the record signatures by 32 members of the House of Representatives who are veterans. The signatures call on the Senate to honor the constitutional duty of advise and consent by conducting a fair, thorough confirmation process that evaluates his nomination solely on the substance and merits. His distinguished military service, academic credentials, and a bold vision for revitalizing the national defense. I ask unanimous consent to enter into the record.
Without objection.
You know, there's a lot of talk going about talking about qualifications, and then about us hiring him if we are the board. But there's a lot of senators here I wouldn't have on my board because there is no qualifications except your age, and you got to be living in the state, and you're a citizen of the United States to be a senator. Other than the fact we got to convince a lot of people to vote for us. And then when we start talking about qualifications for if you're qualified for it, could the chairman tell me what the qualifications are for the Secretary of Defense? Mr. Chairman, could you tell me what the qualifications are for the Secretary of Defense?
I'd be happy
I'll read
for
it.
you to do that.
Yeah. Let me read it for you, because I Googled
I
it.
was getting some advice from my second in command.
Yeah, but I'm just making a point, because there's a lot about qualifications, and I think it's so hypocritical of senators, especially on the other side of the aisle, be talking about his qualifications, not going to lead the secretary or be the Secretary of Defense, and yet your qualifications aren't any better. You guys aren't any more qualified to be the senator than I'm qualified to be the senator, except we're lucky enough to be here. But let me read you what the qualifications of the Secretary of Defense is, because I Googled it, and went through a lot of different sites, and really it's hard to see. But in general, the U.S. Secretary of Defense position is filled by a civilian. That's it. If you have served in the U.S. Army Forces and have been in the service for, you have to be retired for at least 7 years, and Congress can weigh that. And then there's questions that the senator from Massachusetts brought up about serving on a board inside the military industry, and yet your own secretary that you all voted for, Secretary Austin, we had to vote on a waiver because he stepped off the board of Raytheon. But I guess that's okay, because that's a Democrat Secretary of Defense. But you so quickly forget about that. And then Senator Kaine, or I guess I better use the senator from Virginia, starts bringing up the fact that what if you showed up drunk to your job? How many senators have showed up drunk to vote at night? Have any of you guys asked them to step down and resign from their job? And don't tell me you haven't seen it, because I know you have. And then how many senators do you know have got a divorce before cheating on their wives? Did you ask them to step down? No, but it's for show. You guys make sure you make a big show and point out the hypocrisy because the man's made a mistake. And you want to sit there and say that he's not qualified? Give me a joke. I mean, it is so ridiculous that you guys hold yourself as this higher standard and you forget you got a big plank in your eye. We've all made mistakes. I've made mistakes. And Jennifer, thank you for loving him through that mistake. Because the only reason why I'm here and not in prison is because my wife loved me too. I have changed, but I'm not perfect. But I found somebody that thought I was perfect. And for whatever reason, you love Pete, and I don't know why. But just like our Lord and Savior forgave me, my wife's had to forgive me more than once too, and I'm sure you've had to forgive him too. And so thank you. So before I go down this rabbit hole again, tell me something about your wife that you love.
She's the smartest, most capable, loving, humble, honest person I've ever met. In addition to being incredibly beautiful.
Don't forget about your kids.
I'm supposed to talk about my kids?
No, well, she's also the mother.
Oh, an amazing mother.
Yes.
Of our
yes.
blended family of 7 kids.
Brother, I'm pulling you along.
Her.
I'm trying to help you here. You know, do you believe that you're going to be running the Secretary or the Department of Defense by yourself?
Senator, absolutely not. Just as President Trump is assembling his cabinet, I look forward and already am in the process of building one of the best possible teams you can imagine with decades and decades of experience outside of the Pentagon, driving innovation and excellence, and also inside the building, knowing how to make it happen. Yes, sir.
So, in your organizations that you did have the privilege of running, did you have a board that you...
In both organizations, we had a board, yes.
Okay, and what did you do with that board? What kind of decisions did you make with them?
Those boards provided oversight and insight into decision-making.
They all have special, unique sets that maybe filled gaps that you're not the expertise in?
Yes, sir.
So do you believe you're capable of surrounding yourself with capable individuals that you're going to be able to run those same ideas by and surround yourself with people that are smarter and better equipped in maybe areas that you don't necessarily carry those expertise with?
Senator, the only reason I've had success in life, to include my wonderful wife, is because of people more capable around me and having the self-confidence to empower them and say, hey, run with the ball, run with the football, take it down the field. We'll do this together. I don't care who gets the credit. And in this case, that's how the Pentagon will be run.
Let's end with this, Mr. Chairman, about the qualifications. You got a man who has literally put his butt on the line, who served 20 years in the service, multiple deployments, has heard the bullets crack over the top of his head, has been willing to go into combat, been willing to see friends die for this country, and he's willing to still put himself through this. His wife is willing to still stand beside him, knowing he wasn't perfect, knowing that all this was going to be brought up, and he's still willing to serve the country. What other qualifications does he need? That I yield back.
Thank you, Senator Mullen. Senator Duckworth. And again, we really are.
Wow, someone call a medic because Mark Wayne Mullen just left half that committee in body bags. That was one of the most brutal reality checks I have ever seen in a congressional hearing. Let's talk about Tim Kaine for a second. Kaine and the rest of the Democrats on that panel want to make this entirely about Hegseth's personal life and past mistakes. Why? Because they know they cannot attack his military record. Pete Hegseth served for 20 years. He had multiple combat deployments. He had actual bullets cracking over his head while Tim Kaine was busy attending fancy cocktail fundraisers and playing politics. They are trying to disqualify Hegseth by holding him to a standard of absolute flawless perfection, a standard that not a single person in that room could meet. Mullen calling them out was brilliant. He looked them dead in the eye and asked the questions we all want answered. How many of you senators show up to work drunk? How many of you have cheated on your spouses and hidden it? The silence in that room was deafening. They make a huge show for the cameras pretending to be outraged, but behind closed doors, they are doing the exact same things or worse. The hypocrisy is just sickening. And then you have the whole argument about qualifications. The law literally states that the Secretary of Defense should be a civilian. That's it. But these politicians act like you need 40 years of bureaucratic desk experience to run the military. Look where that has gotten us. We have a Pentagon that cares more about politics than winning wars. Pete Hegseth isn't part of their club. He's a guy who is actually on the ground, in the dirt, dealing with the consequences of the stupid decisions made by the suits in Washington. That is exactly why they hate him. He's going to walk in there, clean house, and they're terrified. And I also have to give massive respect to how Hegseth handled himself at the end there. When Mullen gave him the floor to talk about his wife, he didn't get defensive or angry. He was humble. He admitted he wasn't perfect. He praised his wife for her strength, her intelligence, and her forgiveness. That takes actual guts. And when asked about how he'd run the Defense Department, he didn't give some bloated political answer. He said he's going to surround himself with the smartest, most capable people and empower them to get the job done. That is what a real leader sounds like. Tim Kaine could learn a lot from a guy like Pete Hegseth, but guys like Kaine don't want leaders. They want yes-men who will protect the establishment. Well, it looks like the establishment is finally getting a wake-up call, and I'm here for it. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments. Am I off base, or was Mullen exactly right to call out the Senate's fake outrage? Drop a like, hit subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.